Morning, this is Norma Cowie, and welcome to Norma Talks, which is on every Wednesday morning. At least I record it every Wednesday morning, thanks to Zoom. And a few people often come and listen to me live, which is always appreciated. This morning, my topic is life after death. And I want to tell you a little bit of a story about how I became aware of a lot of the things that happen in life after death. And I basically know what a person goes through. It all began with a book I read called A Soul's Journey by Peter Richelieu, first published in 1953, apparently in South Africa, I believe, under another name. That book, of which I have 2 copies, left. A lot of my library got lost at one time in a move, but I ended up finding more copies of this book because I cherished it so much. I'll tell you the story, basically, what went on in this book. Peter's brother was killed in the Second World War, and he was really mourning this fact. And he kept asking God, why him? Why not somebody else, etc., etc. And a teacher appeared, and I mean that he appeared. He used to show up and go away every day for quite some time, and began to teach him a lot of philosophy, but he also taught him astral projection. And the first part of the book talks a lot about what this teacher, who had the shape of a northern man from India, dressed that way. He talked about philosophy and how life was in everything, including the mineral world and the vegetable world. And then Peter began to astral project to find his brother. That was he started off, all he wanted to do was find his brother, even though he had been dreaming and talking to him in his dreams. Well, he found his brother quite quickly, from what the book says. And the brother was partying, having a good time, having a fun time. And Peter was still curious, so he kept traveling through the different levels of vibration, on and on and on, right up to where there was beautiful celestial music. And I call it the music of the spheres, and I have been fortunate enough to hear it the odd time. And I just loved the whole story of this. Now, you must remember, this began for me and very early in my own journey. And I had been raised in a religious sense as a child, you know, where you die, you go to heaven or you go to hell kind of thing. And so this opened up a whole new world for me, that there were levels. And he described at one point, like the Christians and different kinds of Christians, also different sects, were in one group, and the Buddhists were another, and the Muslims were in another, and this and that, and other people were just hanging out, partying or learning or going to school. Now, I'm going to come forward to a lot of times to when my mom passed over. And very quickly, even though I always say I'm not a medium, I could talk to my mother, and I did talk to my mother. And what she told me was that she had a choice. She could go play and have fun, or she could go to school. And so she chose to go to school, because she said, if I got to go to school, I might as well go to school. And that was my mom. So she went to school. Now, the interesting thing about being in school was that I could access her, actually, and I did. I would, when I wanted to ask a question or something, I would just say, hey, Mom, and she would show up. And then one day, I'm not sure, quite a while later, she said to me, not now, dear, I'm busy. And I went, oh, okay. She's very getting involved with what's going on and where she is. And she doesn't really have the time or to just be at my beck and call whenever I wanted to know something or check something or whatever. And so less and less I called on her. And then one day I did, I can't remember if she came to me first or if I called her up, telephone, bing, bang. And she said to me, I'm getting ready to reincarnate, and so I won't be available. And she told me who she was going to be born to. It was within the family, which I've never told anybody who it was. And and interestingly enough, my trips back to New Zealand have never coincided, so I could see or get to meet this particular person that is part of the bigger family group. And so that was my mom. So a year later, my dad goes over to the other side. Now, my dad was kind of a hard-nosed kind of guy, and although he had been raised by a mother who died when he was 11, who was very metaphysical, he had some basic, didn't believe in churches, even though I went and my mom had a very, very religious background. He did believe in angels. And he did believe in lots of things. And actually, he was a man, if you ever listen to his life story, that did have 9 lives, honestly. He went places where he, quote, should be being killed, he wasn't. Now, he did not go to war because he was too old, but that's another story. So when he passed over, I actually did a lot of what people might call therapy work with him. We went on long walks together. Sounds weird, walking along, and I would talk with him. And a lot of the issues that I had with him, we resolved at that time, because I did have a lot of issues with him. He was hard, and he was very opinionated, and that was all there was. And I used to argue a lot with him in my life. But I left home when I was 18 to come to Canada and get married and have children and start my family, and didn't get back a lot in the early years. I've done that more in the latter years. Now, my dad went on a whole different journey. He really had been working a lot of his life, hard working, and he opted to go and have fun. And he did. He spent a year in my time at least playing, having fun. And then he kind of got to realizing it was time to kind of look at some other things, and he looked at some other things. And then he eventually came to me and said, "Now I'm going to reincarnate." And he explained to me why and how and who. I didn't know who he was going to be reincarnated to. He just explained what he was becoming. So from that alone, I learned a great deal. But there was another element that adds to this. I began studying and doing personal past life regressions for people. I used to do a lot of workshops. And when I began to realize, and I have said these in some of the videos, that what holds us back through fear is our guilt and regret and strong emotions that we may hang on to, which does not allow the transition to go easy. Or what we do is we take all the issues from, say, life, we'll just go ABC, take the issues from life A, and we bring them into life B, and then if we still don't resolve them, we go into C, et cetera, et cetera. So what we began to see is patterns of lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. I would sometimes say, in this technique that I developed, like, how many lifetimes have you had with whatever the issue is that they're wanting to resolve? And they'll sometimes say 5 or more or a lot or just 1 or 2 or 1. So part of our journey in this lifetime, as far as I'm concerned, is to really go inside to resolve the issues, the guilt, the regret, the emotions like anger and frustration that often we carry, not just in the moment. I know I had to do a lot of work on that myself personally, because I'd repressed a lot of anger in this life. And it's amazing how much we often carry of the energetics. Now, I'm just going to explain what I do in the past life regression work, and I'm going to leave that for a moment then, is that what I do in whatever life they're looking at, because you only look at one life at a time, even though you may look at several during a past life session, is I have them go to their last day of the life, take a look back. What did they learn? As they look back, what regrets, what guilt, any strong emotion they might have. And then I introduce what I call the light to them, and they find that light, which is love, and they bring that into them. And then they let that go from that incarnation. Then I have them come back into their awareness of their body as to where they hold that in their body. Now you might think, oh, the heart, not always. Muscles, legs, knees. This is where being psychic, I was able to look at them and direct them. Well, how about, do you have any of that energy here? Or do energy there? And so they can again bring that light in, the same light in to release that. And then we depending on our time, go back and take a look at another life and do the same thing. That began my awareness of how much we need to let go of and to release and come into this harmony of this light, this lovingness of the universe. That, of course, transcended into a lot today of a lot of the transformation work I do with people. But it was the beginning. It was the realization that the soul is immortal. It's forever. So even though we're in this body now, the body goes back to the soil one way or the other. It goes back to the earth. The soul goes on. And while it's in the vibration of this earth, so what do we expect when it comes to dying? Again, I'm going to tell a couple of stories. Before I even knew that I was psychic at all, my father-in-law was dying. And I would be going to the hospital to see him. He had cancer. And one day I came back to my mother-in-law and said, who's the redheaded lady? No, I wasn't even thinking that she was, but I could see this redheaded lady around. And he said, well, his mother was redheaded. And I said, oh, okay. And my father-in-law was the second man in Canada to have polio. And because of his resilience as a young man, he was only 19, he wasn't as, I don't know what word handicapped, I guess we could call it now, and he lived most of his life with one leg and a caliper. So, and later in his life, he had two because the other leg got a little weak as well. And I saw them, I could see them up higher, where they were teaching him he could walk without his caliper and cane. And as soon as I saw him walking this one day without them, I came home and said to my husband, and I said, we got to take the kids to the hospital because my father-in-law he's going to go tonight. Well, he went in the early morning, but that was went. Now, another thing I learned, me not thinking, being young, I was still in my early 20s, said to the kids, say goodbye to granddad because you're not going to see him again. Now, he was in a coma by now, and he actually stirred, his body moved. And that's when I knew people in comas heard you, and that you need to talk to them because they can't hear you. They just can't talk. They can't, maybe whatever goes on, they can't. So anyway, two things came out of that, was the awareness that people come for you. There is a person that comes for you. Now, I want to talk about something else here. Accidents, unexpected deaths. I know that my ghost busting side taught me a lot about that. Because all of a sudden you're thrust out of your body. You don't have time to prepare. Oh my goodness, I'm making this transition. You don't think to look around to see who's there to help you. You don't think to look around for lights because there's always lights. There's always helpers to help you across. And one story I want to repeat to you because it came out me working. It's in my ghost busting book I wrote about. I was called into a radio station and because they were having some trouble with equipment. And very often when there's activity, electrical equipment gets interrupted. Anyway, the title of my book is The Ghost I Took Home, because I actually took a ghost home with me, because in a radio, if you don't like here, you cannot have big long moments of quiet, which is what happens when you're talking mind to mind. So anyway, I assessed the situation and what this man had a terrible life, but what he was doing was when people got lost, and they do get lost, because these two, actually the story was that there was an accident on a highway and two teenagers died. And of course, they didn't know what was going on, because to them, life just continues on. Why is no one talking to me? What's happening? And they had each other. This man went, and that was what he was doing. He was helping people who were just over, and he was showing them the ropes, so to speak. And for anyone who wants to know how those ropes can work, you can always watch the movie Ghost, because that is a very good movie talking about what can happen if you're not prepared that you are dead, because that's the truth. And I really enjoyed it. There's a couple of points in it. Mostly it was very, very good. So anyway, this ghost I took home and cleared him at home, because it took me a long time to work with him. But he was helping. But those teenagers transition, once I brought the light to them, they were gone. There was no trouble at all. But if you don't know to look for a light, if you don't know to look around, is there anybody that you know that's already on the other side? Because just as my father-in-law had his mother come for him, other people can come for you, teachers. Some of us will have teachers that'll come, guides that we've worked with for a long time, maybe not family members. I had a niece that nearly was very close to dying, I forget for what reason, and she said to me, Nana came, that's my mom, Nana came and said, it's going to be all right, dear, it's going to be all right. So, you know, what I want you to understand, my niece lived, of course, and what I want you to know is that the transition time of leaving your body. Now, the other thing many people don't know is that the last thing that happens is that you can still hear. You may not be able to talk if you're having my daughter was helping her best friend go over. There were 33 at the time, if I remember rightly. And she said, Mom, you got to remember, they can still hear you. And I just directed her across, which was wonderful. I thought it was really wonderful. And the last thing her friend actually said to her was, I am unfolding. And I just thought, all I could see was the image of a butterfly and unfolding. She was leaving this, which was really ill again with cancer, leaving it to go into this other place, this other light, as my daughter ran. So what can you expect? Help. You can expect help. You can expect to leave this body. And the key is to not take all the stuff that you got stuck on. Hopefully you've cleared it before that, so that you're not really stuck with it and you can go forward. Now, you'll go into a different vibration of you. That's the one thing I really came to understand. It's like water finds its own level. There's a story like if you pour water into the earth, it will go down to where it finds a level. Our souls will go to the level that our soul is at. That's why many people meditate. That's why many people do other things to raise that internal vibration. So when that time comes, they're not in a vibration that does not feel comfortable, because you want to be comfortable. And that's why in the book I referred to in the beginning of Soul's Journey, that people were around other people that were similar to them. Because just as we have friends that make us feel comfortable, we will gravitate to those that feel comfortable. We don't just become a puff of air. Our soul will probably hold on to the same image we have now until we get ready to reincarnate or leave Earth's orbit. I wanted to talk a little bit about the reincarnational element. If you have not let go, well, this is something I came to the decision, and I'm going to just go back onto that. I want to say this is something I determined, correctly or not, I don't know, is that the important thing is you need to be able to be comfortable with all your feelings without judgment, without storing them. You just have to be able to accept them, acknowledge them, be aware of them. So that frees you up, because this, as far as I'm concerned, is an emotional planet. And it is a one planet that, as I've traveled the universe a lot, is that has love in it. This is a love vibration, which is a feeling. It is not a head trip. You can't think love. You really can't. You have to feel love. That's why I say it's part of the heart. But also the earth itself exhibits, it has that vibration all the time. If you can resolve where you're at, then if you choose to leave this, it's very easy. You can go somewhere else. Now, years ago, people would sort of say, how come we've got so many souls now on the earth and we didn't have before? Part of it is because the soul also can split. And I don't want to get into that today, but I want you to be aware that when you have transitioned to that other side of no physical body, the world awaits. It's not stop, does not stop. It continues because you're on a journey. The soul wants to learn, grow, understand, come to be at one with all sorts of things. That's what the soul wants to do. And your soul wants to go. Now, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about, and that's called initiation at death. Initiation at death happens, doesn't matter who you are. When the light comes for you, which is love, and you're able to let go of all the other things and allow yourself into that love, you will sort of bypass a lot of other ways of things that you can go that you have to work yourself sort of through and up. So what does that really mean? It means that we need to be prepared to accept love. Not only to love ourselves, but to feel that universal love that is there for us, that comes for us, that will allow us to be at one with it and to know with it. The one thing I really want you to understand is that you're never alone, you're never left, that you're the key. You need to be aware, you need to look, you need to open up to the lights that are there, because it's like love is always here for us, but if we do not open our heart to that, we don't feel it. If we do not open our heart to a person that comes up to us and says, time to come with me, and you've got to go, just like a little kid has to go with their mom when she says, come on, we've got to go now. It's someone, it's time. But it's also into the lovingness, and it brings tears to my eyes because it's beautiful. And I want you to understand that you are loved, no matter what you've done, no matter what you feel guilty about, no matter what you regret, you are loved. And that light is all forgiveness. And you can let go and move into the light and become who you truly are. Thank you for listening. I want to thank you for those who have subscribed, and I want to thank you for those that go to my website, normacowie.com, and sign up for my monthly newsletter. I will be back next week and also on Sunday for my Sunday Thought. Thank you so much. Have a good week.